Okay then, yesterday we were discussing about biasing of a transistor and we also spoke about the reason why we need biasing. So unless and until we connect some external DC power supplies to a transistor, the transistor will not be conducting or there won't be movement of charge carriers. Initially, once the junctions are formed, the charge carriers will try to move and they cross over the junction and they form a depletion layer. And then the complete moving of free charge carriers is stopped. Nothing else will happen. But if we want to make use of the transistor for the purpose for which it is designed, then we have to connect external DC power supplies to the transistor to bias the transistor. So please remember the definition of biasing is it's a technique of applying external voltages, external DC voltages using a set of resistors or through a set of resistors to a BJT to ensure that it operates in a specific region of operation. And please remember, normally that specific region is the what? Active region. We usually want the transistor to work in the active region, and more than often biasing is needed only for active region. For the other two regions, even without biasing, we can manage. Okay. So if we want the transistor to work in cutoff or saturation, even without biasing, by just giving input signals of certain magnitude, you can put it into those regions. But for the active region, biasing is a must. And in the active region, base emitter junction should be forward biased, base collector junction should be reverse biased. So remember that. For that, what do we do for a transistor whose emitter is common? Common emitter configuration, we call this as. A transistor in a common emitter configuration, we'll connect a power supply, a VBB in the base junction and another power supply, DC power supply, VCC to the collector. Okay, usually this is how we would connect, and we saw this yesterday. Defined the DC operating point. This DC operating point, also known as the Q point, is the meaning of Q is quiescent and it means silent. It's called so because it operates only for static DC conditions and not for AC. So this Q point is normally defined with respect to DC conditions. This operating point is a specific point on the output characteristic curve of a transistor, which gives us the location or the values of operating values of collector current and collector emitter voltage. I told you the two points, the two values in the Q point are VCE and IC, and it will be located on the output characteristics of a transistor, the common emitter transistor. And please remember, I told you common emitter configuration is the one which finds maximum use in amplifiers because it provides both current as well as voltage gain. That's the only configuration which can give you power gain. Power gain is nothing but voltage into current gain. And when both these values are higher than 1, more than 1, which happens only in common emitter amplifier, you'll get a power gain. And that's why CE is commonly preferred for all amplifiers. We don't prefer common base or common collector. In almost all amplifiers, we always prefer common emitter configuration. That's why even these coordinates of the Q point, I have marked the collector current and collector emitter voltage of CE configuration only. Okay, so it lies on the output characteristics of the BJT, which is in CE configuration. This operating point can be established by providing biasing to the circuit. So biasing is connecting DC voltages through resistors so that the transistor can work in the active region, and it can be made to work for a specified value of collector emitter voltage and a specified collector current. So I showed you yesterday how a transistor can be designed as an amplifier. For a simple reason, we just took the common emitter transistor, and along with the DC current, we connected an AC current, and we said how that AC current results in AC output voltage and AC output current. So amplifier, it works like, or it increases the magnitude of the given input signal for the simple reason that this input signal which is given to the base should normally be in micro. Sorry, I was diverted. And the output current will be in milliamperes. Output voltage will be in volts. So now it works as an amplifier basically because a small input voltage or current can be increased to a large value. And this happens because we are giving DC voltages in the circuit. DC gets converted to AC and hence increases the magnitude or amplifies. And generally, the transistor will be acting like a fixed voltage of 0.7 or 0.6 volts between the base and emitter. And the conducting transistor in saturation will act like a constant voltage of 0.2 volts between collector and emitter. So this is the collector terminal, this is the emitter, this is, so generally these are approximate fixed voltages when the transistor is in saturation. Anyway, we saw that there are three regions of operation. Before that, the BJT as a switch. So it can be made to work like a switch by simply giving a voltage, a high enough voltage here. Say I will connect a square wave. During positive half cycle of the square wave, we get forward bias base emitter voltage. This junction is forward bias. Transistor will be conducting. Whenever the base emitter junction is forward biased, please remember the transistor will conduct. Whenever the transistor is conducting, there is flow of current and the transistor will be in saturation. This point, it will be in saturation during positive half cycle of the input. So the transistor output voltage is in this region, which is very low, 0.3 volts. Remember, when a transistor is in saturation, the voltage across the transistor will be just 0.2 or 0.3 volts. Okay, that happens when I connect positive half cycle of input and forward bias the base emitter junction. So now the switch is in this region, the lower region where output voltage is low. Input is high, output is low. And next, when the input signal given is low, that means you are giving a square wave like this. So when input was +5, the transistor goes to saturation. And when input is -5, the transistor will go to cutoff. Why does it go to cutoff? Because the base emitter will not have sufficient voltage. Remember, what type of transistor is this? This is a NPN. I told you whenever the arrow points out of the emitter, it's always NPN transistor. So in this NPN transistor, forward biasing base emitter means connecting positive to P-type base and negative to N-type emitter. But if I give a voltage here which is -5, that means I'm giving negative to P and positive to N. So this will get reverse biased during negative half cycle. And if there is reverse bias in the base emitter junction, the transistor goes to cutoff state. When the transistor is cut off, what happens? There is no current flow in this circuit. So the current in this circuit becomes 0, which means all the voltage which is here will appear between the collector and emitter terminals. Since there is no current flowing, the complete voltage drops across the transistor, and that's why we have a high voltage here. And when the voltage across the transistor is high, it is in cutoff. When the voltage across the transistor is low, it is in saturation. And in between both, it is in active region. This region of transition, when it is changing from cutoff to saturation, the transistor will be in active mode. But for switching operation, we want this active mode to pass quickly. We just want it to happen such that transistor will be changing between cutoff and saturation again and again. So usually this transition takes place fast. So please remember the conditions for a switch. Okay. Next, let's draw something known as the DC load line. What is a DC load line? It is a straight line drawn on the output characteristics of the transistor. How do I get a straight line representation? So we have taken the common emitter transistor amplifier. You see this emitter is common. Please understand this is emitter, base, collector. Emitter is common here. We have given the base power supply VBB and we have given the collector power supply VCC. I told you this VCC is a connection like this between positive to collector and negative to ground. That's the meaning of writing VCC like this. Now, let us try to write the KVL equations of input and output loop. So first, let's write the KVL equation. In order to define the load line, I need the KVL equation of this output loop. Remember one thing, don't forget about the voltages between base and emitter. There is a voltage between collector and emitter junction, and there is a current IC flowing in the transistor. Okay, in the output region of the transistor, these are the different elements. I hope all of you remember the Kirchhoff's voltage law. Can you tell me the equation? We are moving in this direction. So in your normal networks convention, what did you consider when we move from negative to positive? Did you take it as minus or plus?
Minus.
Okay,
Minus,
so
ma'am.
we'll take from VCC here. We are going from negative to positive. So minus VCC, right? Then what is the drop across this resistor RC? The current flowing is IC and it is flowing downwards. Why does this current flow downwards? I told you this currents you should immediately identify. Here it is an NPN transistor. The highest current is the emitter current flowing outwards. The other two currents IB and IC should flow inwards. Okay. Please remember the current conventions. You should be able to mark directly. So now IC is flowing like this means the drop developed, the potential will be this end is positive, this end is negative. So I have to consider that drop as minus ICRC, correct? Drop across this resistor. Then what about the voltage drop across the transistor? Again, we are moving from positive to negative. So minus VCE is equal to 0. Nothing else here. Correct? Yes or no? Any doubts with this KVL? You should be quite familiar. Minus VCC minus ICRC minus VCE is 0. If you have any doubts, please ask. Now I will rearrange this. Rearranging so that I want IC on the left hand side and the rest, since everything is minus, I can multiply it with a negative sign and everything will become positive. So if I just multiply everything with a negative sign on both sides of the equation, it becomes positive. So let's keep IC on the left hand side and let's shift the other things. So I'll get minus VCE by RC. I want IC alone plus, correct? plus VCC by have we written this equation right?
Ma'am, it should be
Wrong.
plus
Wrong.
ICRC, right?
Exactly. I wanted one of you to comment. See, when you have moved from negative to positive and taken that as negative, positive to negative should be positive, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
I hope you're familiar with KVL. Please be attentive. I was thinking why nobody commented so long. Okay. So here, what will happen when I keep IC on this side? This is the actual equation of the KVL. Let's remove this. We need not multiply and all that. So negative to positive is minus VCC. Positive to negative is plus ICRC. Positive to negative plus VCE is 0. So what is IC here? When I shift this to the other side, minus VCE by RC plus VCC by RC. Or I can write this as minus 1 by RC into VCE plus VCC by RC. If you look at this equation, you'll see that this equation is in the form of y is equal to mx plus c. What does this equation represent?
Straight line equation.
Straight line.
And where should this straight line be drawn? What
Output
is,
characteristics.
yes, the x-axis is your collector emitter voltage, the y value is your IC. So this straight line should be located on the output characteristics. So let me draw the output characteristics VCE versus IC. And how do I draw the straight line? Initially, if you want a point on the x-axis, make the y-coordinate 0. So when IC is equal to 0, what is the value of VCE from equation 1? You put IC as 0 here. You can consider this equation also. You will get VCE is equal to VCC. So in this equation, when I put IC as 0, VCE would turn out to be equal to VCC. I got 1 point on the x-axis. And when I make the x-coordinate value 0, what would be the corresponding value of the y-coordinate? If you make VCE 0, IC would be
VCC
equal
by
to,
RC.
yes, VCC by RC. So we got the 2 points on the output character. I haven't drawn the output characteristic curve just to avoid clutter. Okay. Remember, we have the output characteristic curves here like this. Anyway, we could have multiple characteristics, each with a different value of IB, IB1, IB2, so on. Now, if I just join these 2 points, I'm going to get the straight line, which we have represented in equation 1. And this straight line is called DC load line. Can anybody tell me why the name load line? DC, all of you can understand because we are operating only with DC voltages. Why the name load line? What is this resistor RC called in a transistor? Whenever we connect
Load.
yes, it is the load resistor. Whenever you connect a resistor in the collector, or it is a point where you measure the output. We normally measure the output from the collector to ground, and that's where this resistance is connected. So since the slope of this line is what? Minus 1 by the load resistance. It is minus 1 by RC, which is the load resistance. So it is M. M represents the slope, which is minus 1 by the load resistance. This line is called the DC load line. And the Q point or the operating point which we considered should be a point which is the intersection of the load line with one of the characteristic curves of the transistor. And with which characteristic curve that intersection should be done, that I can find out by finding the base current. How do I find the base current in this circuit? Where is the base current flowing?
VBB by RB.
Will it be VBB by RB? There is one more voltage here. The base current is flowing in the input loop. Apply KVL in the input loop. Can you tell me the KVL equation of input loop? Again, negative to positive. So minus VBB. And IB should enter the transistor. Yes. This should be plus IB RB. And then what other voltage is there? The base emitter forward bias voltage. Again, we are moving from positive to negative. So plus VBE is equal to 0. Is this right? Minus VBB. IB is flowing in this direction. This is the direction for IB. So plus IB RB. This is the potential drop. And VBE is positive to base and negative to emitter. So plus VBE is 0. So what would be the value of base current here? VBB, move it to the other side, minus VBE. When I shift VBB, it becomes positive. When I shift VBE, it becomes minus. Divide by RB. This will give you the value of base current. Once you get this base current, whichever characteristic curve corresponds to this base current, the intersection of that characteristic curve with the DC load line will give you the operating point or the Q point. I hope this is clear. And this Q point will have a corresponding value of X or collector emitter voltage and a corresponding value of collector current. So fixing the operating point means fixing the corresponding VCE and IC. And how have we done this fixing? By including DC voltage sources and resistors in a BJT circuit. Okay. So we do biasing by connecting DC voltage sources and resistors in the BJT circuit, and we will be able to fix the base current first. If I fix the base current, how is the collector current dependent on the base current? What's the relationship between IC and IB?
Beta IB.
Beta IB. Neglecting the second term, I can say IC is approximately equal to beta IB. So first thing what we have to do in a biasing circuit is to fix the base current. Then the collector current gets fixed automatically. And the third thing which we do is to fix the collector emitter voltage. By using the output loop equation, I can find the collector emitter voltage will be VCC minus IC RC. Okay. So this is how we work with biasing circuits and fixing the operating point. Any doubts with this? Shall we move on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what should be the location of the bias point or the operating point? Let's see. 1 second, I'll draw it a bit. Yeah. Let me take it towards the center. Let's say This is your DC load line. We normally say the Q point should be located in the center of the DC load line. Why? What's the reason that the Q point should lie in the center of the DC load line? What will happen if it is not in the center? Yes?
Because there will be
If
it is the point where we'll be getting the maximum output.
Why so?
active region.
Fine. It is in the center of the active region. So let's try to draw this graphically and justify. Remember, from here to here, it is completely in the active region, and the saturation region is to the left here, right? This is saturation and this is cutoff. The shading portions are saturation and cutoff. The rest of the region here is the active region. Now, in order to justify the location of the Q point, we can consider the input signal and output signal. Remember, this is collector current, collector emitter voltage, like what we considered yesterday. We have to consider the input signal given here. You see, I can give the maximum length of, or the maximum swing, we call it as signal swing. The sinusoidal input signal can have its maximum swing only when it is in the active region. Suppose I have a signal which is beyond this. Say the signal is larger than this. What happens normally? The transistor will not be allowing the signal in the saturation or in the cutoff. It's going to clip off the signal. It will allow the signal properly without any changes in shape, with the correct shape only when it is in the active region. So the highest possible signal swing or maximum signal swing is allowed when the Q point is in the center of the load line, because I'll get the highest positive and highest negative swing. So one thing you remember, in a common emitter transistor amplifier, when the input signal is positive, you see this correspondingly maps to this area. The output signal will be negative. Corresponding to this, I'm going to get the negative half cycle of the output, and corresponding to the negative half cycle of the input signal, I'm going to get positive half cycle of the output. That's why we say there is a 180-degree phase change or 180-degree phase deviation or phase change in a common emitter amplifier. This happens only in common emitter amplifier. Please remember this. In a CE amplifier, output will be 180-degree out of phase with input. It will be 180-degree out of phase with input. Okay, please remember this. Whereas if I talk in terms of the output current, it will be in phase. Here positive half cycle will be represented with positive, negative half cycle with negative. So only in terms of the output voltage, VCE is similar to V0 output voltage. Here IC is similar to I0 output current. Current and output current and input current and voltage will be in phase, but input voltage and output voltage will be out of phase. Please remember this, and why it will be out of phase. Maybe you can try to reason out, or I'll tell you. So what happens here? We have shown that when the Q point is in the center of the load line, we can give maximum possible input signal deviations both on the positive as well as negative side, so that we will be able to get highest signal swing, highest undistorted signal swing. We also call this as maximum signal swing for a transistor amplifier. But what happens if the Q point is located somewhere near saturation or somewhere near cutoff? Say if I locate the Q point here, or if I locate the Q point somewhere here, what do you think will happen? Okay, let's take the example of cutoff. If the Q point is here, the input signal is like this. What will happen here at the output? When you do this perpendicular mapping, this signal maps, the DC load line is not at all there here. So only till where you have the DC load line, only till that point you have the signal amplification, and after that the negative peaks in the input signal will get clipped. You see this portion is not it won't be carried by the transistor, or it won't be amplified by the transistor. During positive half cycle, the transistor is conducting because the positive half cycle maps into the active region, and I'll get a negative output voltage. During negative half cycle, this maps into the cutoff region. You see this is coming below this line. So the transistor will be switched off or cut off. It won't be conducting. You will observe output waveforms which have only negative peaks or negative half cycles. This is when the Q point is close to cutoff. So when Q point is close to or at cutoff, one half cycle or negative half cycle of input is removed, or positive half cycle of output. Okay. So what happens? Can you guess when Q point is at saturation? Here, close to saturation.
Only positive half waves.
Yes, this positive half of the input is moving into the saturation region. So if I try to draw the characteristics, I may get only a small portion of the positive half cycle. You see only whichever portions, this portion which is there in the active region, only that portion passes through, giving you this voltage. Whereas the negative cycle of the input will be completely available at the output. You're going to get this cycle fully, right? So if you observe, when it is in saturation, you have only positive half cycles of the output and maybe a limited negative half cycle if there is a portion passing through, or if it is exactly located here at saturation, only positive half cycles of output voltage will be there, negative half cycles will be removed. Okay, here we are talking in terms of voltage. During Q point being at cutoff, negative half cycles of output voltage will be there, positive portions are removed, and the vice versa is true. Hence, this will be asked as a 5 marks question. Why should the Q point be located at the center of DC load line? This is how you should draw the waveforms and explain. I have drawn both these in the same graph, but I want you to think about drawing them separately. Since you know the concept and you've understood, I have just shown it here. If you want, you can keep it separately here. This is saturation, and you can draw the waveform correspondingly here. This is the sign, and only this portion of the sign is retained, and this waveform is retained. The rest is cut off. This is how it works. Okay. And even in terms of current is cut off here, and this current, negative half cycle in the current will be retained. This is for saturation, and this is for Q point in cutoff. So you'll explain by showing the Q point being in the center of load line, how you will get maximum signal swing or maximum undistorted signal swing. Whereas if I have Q point anywhere near saturation or cutoff, it will result in what? Clipping off of the signal or distortion of the signal we call. So in other words, say the closer and closer I come to cutoff, say if the Q point is here, I can give a very small signal so that the complete signal should lie in the active region and it shouldn't go beyond cutoff. I can't increase the maximum amplitude of the input signal, or the signal swing will be very small as you bring the Q points closer to saturation or cutoff. But if it is in the center, you can give the highest possible signal swing. I think the class will end now. Please join back. Okay. So this is about the reason why, where should we locate the Q point and why. Next, let's move on to the different types of biasing circuits. We have three important types of biasing circuits. One is called the fixed bias, also known as the base bias. The other one is called collector to base feedback bias or simply feedback bias. And the last one, which is the most important one, is called voltage divider or emitter bias. So rather than voltage divider, we normally call it as emitter bias. Very often it is called universal bias. Okay. So voltage divider bias is also known as universal bias simply because it is the most commonly used biasing arrangement for amplifiers. This voltage divider bias is the most commonly or often preferred biasing arrangement used in almost all types of amplifiers. Now, just before trying to analyze the different biasing circuits, some important considerations in biasing. One is the terminal currents must be calculable and it should be insensitive to variations in temperature and to the variations in the beta value among many transistors of the same type. So what's the meaning of this statement? All the currents which we have, when I say terminal currents, it is these three currents, IB, IC and IE. All the currents we should be able to calculate. They should be calculable. So we should not find any problem in calculating the three currents. We should be able to calculate all the three currents, and the values which we fix. Once I fix up this IC, or once I fix up the Q point, which has both VCE and IC, we don't want these things to vary when either temperature changes or when we replace one transistor. Maybe this transistor got damaged, one of the terminals broke or something. I replaced it with another transistor from the same company or same manufacturer. Or for some reason you just have replaced it or the temperature has increased. In spite of all those variations, we don't want this current, fixed current IC to change or this Q point to change. That is one very important consideration which we are going to take care whenever we design biasing circuits. So there should be some method in which, though we can't maintain the values of IC and the Q point, because if temperature changes, they are sure to change. I'll tell you by how much. In spite of that, we should be able to keep this in some small variation or almost constant. If we are able to do that, then we have designed an efficient biasing circuit. Please remember that. We should take care of that. And locating the DC bias point in the collector volt IV characteristics of the transistor, it should allow for maximum output signal swing, for which we need Q point to be approximately in center of the DC load line. So that's why normally we try to locate the Q point somewhere near the center of the DC load line to help allow maximum possible output signal swing. And for these things we will take care. Can you tell me by how much it varies? Let me, before just coming here, let me tell me if, please note down, if temperature changes, first thing which changes is VBE. The base emitter depletion potential, which was supposed to be 0.6 or 0.7 volts for silicon. This VBE is a variant with temperature. If temperature increases, VBE will decrease. So if T increases, VBE decreases. Okay. So if T increases, VBE decreases. Let me say for every 1 degree centigrade increase in T, VBE will decrease by 2.5 millivolts. This is the statistic they have measured. Every 1 degree centigrade rise in temperature will cause the base emitter potential to decrease by 2.5 millivolts. So say in a transistor which is manufactured, you say SL100 or whatever, the base emitter voltage was 0.6. It was originally available as 0.6. The same transistor, when you used it in winter when the temperature was 25 degrees, its value became say 0.55 or something. And the same transistor, I'm using it in summer when the temperature is 40, its value will become 0.7 or something like that. So just because of seasonal alterations and temperature variations, this VBE of the given transistor, same transistor will change. That's one problem. The other element which changes with temperature is the reverse saturation current, ICBO. Remember, this ICBO is the reverse saturation current. How does this change? Here, for every 10 degrees centigrade increase in temperature, for every 10 degrees centigrade rise in temperature, this reverse saturation current will double. Just look at this. So during winter, if this transistor had a reverse saturation current of say for example 10 microampere, during summer this would become 20 microampere. It would double. Please remember, this IC, the collector current depends on the base current directly for a larger extent, but it also depends on the reverse saturation current like this. This equation has two terms. We are going to neglect the second term only when this ICBO is very small. And remember, beta will not be very small in a transistor. So when this ICBO, though small, when it gets multiplied with beta, it can increase. And if this ICBO is sufficiently large, its effect on IC will be higher. Okay. So please understand this. Whenever the temperature increases by 10 degree, the reverse saturation current doubles. So temperature causes change in these two parameters. Other than that, two devices, two BJTs of same manufacturing unit or of the same make and all will have different beta. This is another problem. The beta or the current gain factor in a transistor will not be the same for any two transistors, even if both the transistors are from the same manufacturer and even if they were manufactured in the same batch. Why does this happen? Any idea? All are made together. There were 100 transistors or 1000 transistors made together. Each transistor will have a different beta. That's why usually they don't specify the exact value of beta. They'll give you a range. Any idea why this would change? This mainly happens because of minute variations in the width of the base region. This change in the gain factor, the current gain factor, is mainly because of minute variations in the base width. In a transistor, remember, the base region should be the region having the smallest width or the smallest area. And in that small area, if there is a minute variation, then the recombination current will change and the ratio of IC to IB will change, and hence beta value for that transistor will be different. So it is very difficult, since the base width is in nanometers, it is very difficult to have exact same base width for all transistors. So please remember, the two main reasons why even after fixing the Q point, it will not remain stable or it will not remain as it was fixed. One is the temperature, which affects both VBE and ICBO, and in other words, both will affect the collector current IC. Okay. So one reason is because of temperature variation, and the other reason is because no two devices of the same manufacturer will have the same beta. So all these reasons put together, all these things put together will cause what? Instability in the Q point, or variation in the IC and VCE values which have been fixed by the biasing circuit. We will fix the Q point using biasing circuit, but if we don't take care, surely it will cause huge variations. Though you have fixed IC as say 1 milliampere and VCE as 5 volts, this may hold good if I have designed the same circuit in winter. In summer, this will simply change. It will change IC to 2 milliamps and maybe VCE to 3 volts. It will simply get shifted because of change in temperature. And if you replace the transistor, it will again change. So these are two major problems we should take care. Is that clear? So let's look at the first biasing circuit, which is the fixed bias. As the name indicates, this circuit will involve just a fixing of the base emitter voltage by either connecting one single resistor in the base region like this, and as usual we have the load resistor here and VCC will lie here. This is one way of, we had analyzed the same circuit when we wrote the what? when we wrote the operating point load line, when we wrote the DC load line just now, we had taken the same circuit. So very quickly, we can apply KVL to the input loop. How do we analyze biasing circuits? We just have to apply KVL to the input loop so that we will be able to decide what will be the value of base current. Then we will apply KVL to the output loop so that we will be able to decide the value of collector emitter voltage. Remember, you shouldn't forget the transistor has a fixed base emitter and some value, variable value of collector emitter voltage. So the first step, step 1, KVL to input. Can you tell me this equation directly? Here, minus VBB plus
IBRB plus VBE.
Plus VBE is 0. So what is the value of IB?
VBB minus VBE by RB.
Yes, VBB minus VBE divided by RB. Okay. So we have the base current fixed. Next, from this, I can fix up the collector current. I'll say, therefore, IC is equal to beta times IB approximately. That is step 2. Step 2 is fixing up the collector current. IC is equal to beta times IB. Next is step 3. Step 3 is to write the KVL equation of the output loop. We are moving the output loop in the anti-clockwise direction. So again, minus VCC, IC is flowing downwards, plus IC RC, because this drop will be here. Always current flows from higher potential to lower, plus VCE is equal to 0. Or in other words, what is the value of VCE? We are interested in fixing up the value of the collector emitter voltage. It will be VCC minus IC RC. Call this equation 3. That's it. So we are done with the biasing arrangement where we have written KVL of input loop in step 1. We have found the base current. If you look at this base current, that is equation 1, you will be able to tell me why this circuit is called the fixed bias circuit. Can somebody tell me? Look at this equation 1. Yes? The input current depends on all fixed values of voltages. See, usually it depends on VBB, which is a fixed DC voltage. VBE is slightly variable. We know VBE can change slightly, but when compared to this VBB, VBE is very small. I can say this IB is approximately equal to VBB by RB itself, because this voltage will be very, very small when compared to the other voltage. In other words, the base current value is fixed because we use a fixed DC voltage and a fixed resistance. And that's the reason why this circuit is called as a fixed bias circuit. So we have used a single biasing resistor. Here RB is known as the bias resistor. RC is your load resistance. We are familiar with this. RC is the load resistance. Okay, this is giving some problem. RB is the bias resistance, and we have used a single bias resistance and a power supply to fix the value of IB. If IB is fixed, IC is also fixed because IC directly depends on IB. And based on that, VCE will also get fixed because VCE depends on fixed voltage VCC and ICRC. So once you fix up one value, the other two will also get fixed. Hence the name fixed bias arrangement. The other way of connecting this fixed bias arrangement is, rather than using two power supplies, I want to use a single power supply. So I'll connect the circuit like this. I'll use a single power supply, VCC itself. I'll connect both the resistors to the same power supply. So will this work? Yes or no? Will this arrangement work? Okay, think over.